Listen, y'all already know how I'm coming. Y'all already know how I'm coming. I think that if you're really sitting up on the internet screaming at people over voting, you know, a system where someone can literally win a popular election and still lose, then you're screaming at the wrong people. Y'all already know that I'm of the mind that we need to scrap all of this and start over. And I know I will not underestimate how drastic and how intense such a change like that would be. But I think that we are facing, as a country, as a world, two roads. It's either a slow and painful death or we have to revamp this stuff. We have to revamp the entirety of what we're looking at. I think just as a human race, period. So you have clicked on to somebody who has that mindset. I'm just letting you know, okay? Before we get started. So you might want to click off if it's already not interesting you. So I think that until people are able to conceive of a life completely divested from the idea of empire and all its traditions and its demands, until we reach that moment, knowing that that's the only way that any kind of true liberation can be achieved, not by following not by standing your favorite politicians, is by demanding what you need and making sure you shake the table when you don't get it. Just period. So I think that until people are able to conceive of a life completely divested from the idea of empire and just are completely removed from its oppressive grasp, until we reach that moment, these political parties, Democratic, Republican, whatever they're going to continue to keep playing in our faces. Period. Period. I think that the Democratic Party is controlled opposition at this point. So reports are coming out. As we know, Kamala lost the election, and we have a lot of people now scrambling, right? And I've seen this particular sentiment being spread across the internet, where it's like, y'all are begging Democrats to do something, right? Because they say, essentially, y'all still have time, y'all still control these levers of government, whatever, until January, let's do something. That's what some people are saying. Here, particularly, this tweet from someone says, Democrats control the White House and Senate until January 3rd, 2025. They need to treat the next 2 months as if a fascist is taking over to fundamentally change America. They have levers of power. They need to use them. This cannot be business as usual. And so here's a fundamental difference between my thinking and so many other people, is that oh my gosh, fascism is coming. No, girl, it's here. And Democrats are the ones literally right now, including Republicans, right? But to act like Democrats aren't also funding these cop cities and fascism is here. And it's getting more and more powerful. But to act like Democrats weren't also trying to usher it in is completely disingenuous. And then you expect other people to have the same dissonance that you do, when we can see that these Democrats, just one example, are funding cop cities, are trying to give more. They're not trying to take away money from cops. You know what I mean? I think Joe Biden was up there somewhere apologizing to Native Americans, but at the same time, his administration was drilling oil pipes all through their land. It's disingenuous to sit here and be so mad at Republicans, which we should be. We should be. To be sitting here calling out all the things that Republicans are doing and their hypocrisies, but then when voters have real issues with what Democrats are doing, y'all gonna ignore them and try to reach for the right. That's what Kamala's campaign tried to do. And it's okay. So to this man's tweet, I said, y'all not tired of begging Democratic politicians to fight? The Dem presidential campaign, and what I meant by that is Kamala, bragged about wanting to work with Republicans. She said she gonna have Republican in her cabinet. Now, I want you to think for a second. Do you think a Republican would ever say that? Especially the closer you get to the top of the federal government or the top of these, branches of government. Do you think that these Republicans are sitting down somewhere or have ever said for a legit campaign, oh, I can't wait to invite these Democrats in? No, they spend their whole campaigns making fun of y'all, calling y'all C words, all type of stuff, And so I said, oh, you said Dems have levers of power, and y'all have been begging them since 2016 to use those powers. And we see what the Democratic Party, including the Republican Party, but we've seen what the Democratic Party has prioritized when it comes to using those levers of power. It's not to give people clean water. Obama went there, Flint, and drank that water. It's not to take these people who are living on the streets and giving them like proper housing. It's to clear them out, and incarcerate them, even in California. But it's not to actually give them, a place to stay. We see what the Democratic Party has been using the coin for, girl. We see it. And so I think acting like acting like certain people, especially on the left, don't see that, and then trying to appeal for votes from the right, I think is so wild to do, especially when why would Republicans vote for a Republican light when they could just vote for a Republican? The strategy is ridiculous. I also think that, like I said, you begging these Democrats to use their power when we can just come up with certain examples that will let you know that they are not interested. First of all, how many opportunities did they have, to expand the Supreme Court from, say, 9 to 13 judges? And I'm just looking at stuff here, my research here. President Biden was not supportive of expanding the court, instead favoring a commission to study court reforms. That sounds exactly like when we say, hey, defund the police, abolish this BS that is killing us. No, we're going to invest in reforms. Corny, sounds corny. Nancy Pelosi did not bring the bill to the floor to expand the Supreme Court. Many Democrats were hesitant to support the court expansion. Meanwhile, the Republicans throwing judges up there. The Democrats are not interested in winning or changing anything fundamentally, and they haven't been for a long time. That's why anytime you propose these big changes, these monumental moves, you get pushback from literally Democratic leadership. And so my question for the past how many years was like, okay, so when is enough enough? When is like them Democrats playing in our faces? When is that enough? When are we going to be like, all right, you're gonna have to work for this vote? When are we gonna be like, all right, you don't inherently get my vote just because your party's Democratic? If we see that you're Republican light, are we supposed to ignore that? It seemed like a lot of people wanted that to happen, and clearly it did not. Let's speak about codifying Roe. Based on the information that I'm looking at, Democrats had several opportunities to potentially codify Roe versus Wade over the past 50 years, but faced challenges, obstacles, whatever. In 2009, this is one example. In 2009, under President Obama, Democrats again held majorities in Congress. Obama had initially promised to make codifying Roe a priority, but later said it was not my highest legislative priority. So it's just like, how long are y'all going to allow Democrats to play in y'all face? And do you see how I'm talking about all this, and I haven't even got to Gaza yet? We haven't even got to Gaza yet. You see what I'm saying? So that's why when people act like, oh, oh my gosh, y'all threw away this election, y'all threw for just one issue. Okay, even if they did, the way that issue was handled by the Democratic campaign was garbage. And y'all knew it was. Y'all knew the people on the left that you should have been aiming for would not go for that. So y'all tried to go aim for the right, even going so far as to like, oh, well, reaching out, doing these commercials, reaching out to these wives of Trump voters, trying to get like you did all that instead of trying to reach for the voters that were supposed to be in your backyard. And this is the result. Why would Republicans vote for, Republican light, if they can vote for a Republican that's sitting right there? And why would the people that you needed, even though y'all said y'all didn't, but why would the people that you needed vote for somebody who looks so much like a Republican, acts so much like a Republican? So it's just, I think that the entire strategy is, as we've seen, in empires in the past, is just keeping the status quo the way it is. That's why you see so many people so against voting anybody who's third party or anything like that. Because if it was a true democracy, we should be able to vote for whoever we want to see in these positions. But that's why you see so much pushback against any kind of change when you talk about the Democratic establishment, period. Because the point of them is not for change. It's not change. It's to keep the empire running. It's to keep this capitalist, racist system going the way that it is without too much trouble, without changing, without disturbing the peace too much. That's why they don't want to expand courts. That's why they don't want to codify something into Roe into federal law. They scared. They want to keep things the way that it is, and all that means at the end of the day is that boot on our necks. That's it. And so I think once people like finally start to wake up and be like, oh, well, girl, I'm looking at two sides of the same coin, then I think realistic, even if it's, it's incremental, but realistic change can actually happen then when we look and see the empire for what it actually is. Period. Anyway, I know that people going to be arguing, but leave your comments. Love y'all so much. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you have a good evening. Give me my things. I can take your money and you keep that green. Give me my things. Give me my things. Boy, I want the money. I don't want no strings. 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 No strings.